This is my first tutorial in Guild Wars 2 in regards to World versus World. I'll be going into everything from supply, how to use supply, where to use supply, what kind of gear you should be running, as well as, but not limited to, details about all the different maps, the different structures, the points of interest in regards to what are the best points to attack, in what situations, strategies, tactics, where you should be putting your points in World versus World. But just for starters, I'd like to go into a little bit of detail right off the bat. That is, what kind of class you should be running. First things first, honestly, the tankier the better. A lot of people are gonna be like, oh, blah blah blah, we should be running Zerker, blah blah blah, Zerker for the win. No, just no. I absolutely hate Zerker unless it's on certain classes. In certain instances, and keep this in mind, I'm saying certain instances, having a Zerker build, a high damage DPS build in World vs. World, it works. You can get away with it on a Ranger, no problem, without ever having to do a single bit of work. You won't have to change your Zerker build from PvE to World versus World. Mind you, you might want it to be a little bit tankier, have around 2,500 armor rating knights. I mean, if you decide to push with a Zerg and not do just roaming, then you want enough sustainability to take damage in AoE and get back out of it. The thing that you need to realize about what I'm saying is I run a Hammer Warrior, and looking at my Hammer Warrior, I'm running a very odd combination. Sword Shield. Why do I run Sword Shield? Why am I running nothing but stability and invulnerability? Simple. Survivability. It's for commanding. Okay, now I'm on Fort Aspenwood, and this is tier 2. But all it takes is one really good commander on the opposite team, on the opposite server. Doesn't matter if it's Yax Bend, if it's SOS, if it's Dragon Brand, if it's Jade Quarry, or BG, or any other server. You take one good commander, and you can get pin sniped. And oftentimes, not even so much just good commanders. You've got really good rangers out there, really good mesmers, or a really good engineer can take care of you in an instant. And there are a lot of details that you need to know. There are a lot of factors. Everything from when to use stability, as well as how to time your cooldowns, what settings you should be running. Should you be running the instant AoE ability where it drops right on you, or should you be running the AoE ability where you can target it on the ground? So what it boils down to is, what is your class? If you're running a squishy build, you need to stay in the back of the Zerg. I don't care who you are. It's pointless to try to be with the front line. If I see an Elementalist that's extremely squishy, and they're horrible at dodging, and they keep running in the front line with the Hammer Warriors and the Guardians and the Necromancers, then God forbid. I mean, I would much rather see a Necromancer with a full Zerker build in the front lines, mainly because of their survivability. I mean, think of the fact that they have multiple health bars. Think of the fact that they trade into specs like Vampirism. You don't have these... You don't have that kind of support as those classes. As a Ranger, if you're running Zerker, there's no reason you should ever be in the front line. You should be focusing DPS, AoE cooldowns, in chokes, at the front of the Zerg that you're following, right before wherever the enemy Zerg is running into. Let's take Necromancers, for instance. Should you be throwing down your wells in the middle of a battle? No, you should throw your wells down as if they're CC before the enemy Zerg crashes into you. You want them to be trapped in these conditions. You want them to lose the benefits of their boons. It's the same thing with null fields and throwing them down properly. And veils for mesmers, and properly knowing where to put your portals. There's a lot that goes into World versus World that I can't just go into in one video. But in this video, I'm going to try to go into as much detail as possible. For a first very quick review, you have the Citadel, which is a starting point. You have a Citadel in every single borderland. These 3 borderlands are all the same. Another thing to keep in mind is, on map, they are identical. The only thing that changes and actually differentiates them is the starting points. In your home borderland, you start at the Citadel, no matter what color you are. The enemies will start at the opposite citadels, or I should say the opposite waypoints. The borders. Now, the borders, the tower as well as the camp is the same exact color as the color of the server that week. So essentially, you've got Red Veil, you've got Red Briar, and you've got Sea of Sorrows over here. And then if you look at this right here, Sea of Sorrows is red, and it corresponds also with Green Water, Green Lake, and Yak's Bend. And once again, same thing, they're green. Now, to have the castle, which is SM, or Stone Mist Castle, it's worth the most points in Eternal Battlegrounds, the only map that is different from all the others. The issue with that is, because it's worth the most points, and because it's in the center of the map, everyone takes it. Everyone flips it. You can't put tons of defending siege in it all the time to be able to change things around to your benefit. You can't farm people for hours and hours and hours. I mean, yeah, you can theoretically. I've done it in the past, but that doesn't mean you're going to keep it the entire week that you were fighting a certain server. I mean, it would have to be such a drastic unbalance during seasons or something where, I don't know, you've got Jade Quarry fighting some server like Eridon Terrace way down at the bottom of the list or something like that. I'm just using a comparison. But the fact of the matter remains is each point on the map is worth a specific allotted amount. And as you look at this, you've got the castle, which is Stone Mist. You've got the keeps, which actually substitute as any of these, whether it's the Valley, Lowlands, or Overlook. And if you notice, I'm calling them by their last names because that's typically what they're referred to. The only time that you refer to anything separately in World versus World is when you're using cardinal directions. If you can't think of the name of a map, or of a point on the map that is, how I should say it, that's either being contested or that has orange swords. Orange swords meaning you've got a group of 20 plus players hitting it at the same time. And contested meaning you've got a small group that hit it, whether it's the gate or well, typically you have to hit a gate to contest something, so you would have to hit a gate on Stone Mist, you would have to hit a gate on any of the towers or the keeps. And the contesting is this little white sword symbol over the waypoint. The orange swords is typically what you want to watch out for. So keep in mind, like I was saying before I trailed off, cardinal directions: north, west, east, south. You get the idea. It all still applies. Now, as far as gear goes, if I'm running behind a commander, I'm going to be switching to Sword Warhorn. That's kind of self-explanatory. If I'm running with a commander, or if I'm running as a commander, it should be Sword Shield. You might argue that point, but you know, at this point, it's really all preference. I would much rather have the benefit of having the extra block and having the added sustainability versus just the swiftness and upkeep of the adrenaline, with the other trait being able to be added back into my build. But you basically have to weigh out what works better for you. Also, I could go with Healing Signet, I could go with Defiant Stance. It's preference. I mean, there's a lot of things that I'm going to go into. We'll take meta build for an example. All the meta builds on metabattle.com for Guild Wars 2, for World vs. World. They're good. They work really good. A lot of them are outdated. And a lot of them, they have certain traits, not all the traits, certain traits that can be changed, can be swapped out, can be certain gear that can be changed and swapped out to benefit your playing style. If you're mostly a frontliner, you can go more tanky, or you can go less tanky if you're good at surviving. Once again, it all depends on your playing style. I've heard of some people who play this game with controllers. I don't. I play with a keyboard and a mouse, but that's, once again, preference. I'm not going to down you for playing the game how you want to play. But the fact of the matter is, if you're still listening to this and you're watching this, it's because you don't know how to play World vs. World that well. It's because you're looking to learn how to play better. I'm not here to criticize you, down you, tell you everything you're doing is wrong, but I'm going to be blunt, and I'm going to tell you that casual PvE builds do not work in World vs. World. Mind you, I would rather have a PvP player than a PvE player running with me in a Zerg, but as well as that being said, you have to remember, even having a PvP player with you, their build is not going to be ideal for World vs. World. That's ideal for small groups. And when it comes to a commander and using a commanding build, the more selfish, the better.